I can be greater. Sooner or later, I'm greater than you. No. I can be greater. See, I can be greater. See, I can be greater.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So, what happens when a male prisoner with a mental illness, namely gender dysphoria, decides that he is a woman and wants to be housed with female prisoners? Well, California says yes. So when the government supports such a thing, assuredly we can all agree that society has entered a state of mass psychosis and under serious demonic influence. So this is probably the worst time in history to be a female felon, especially in California, America's crash test dummy. Governor Gavin Newsom has just signed Senate Bill 132 that says men who claim to be women have the right to be incarcerated, housed in the same cell with real biological women. So during the intake process, these men are asked to choose their gender identity, and there is no psych evaluation that I am aware of since I've been researching this. There's no psych evaluation that these men must undergo. They can simply say, yes, I am a woman, and be admitted into the women's prison. So I guess Me Too movement is just for Hollywood, it seems. So according to the Women's Liberation Front, new posters recently appeared in medical rooms outlining the options available to pregnant women in prison, including prenatal care, abortion, of course, and adoption. The poster also declares that women have the right to contraceptive counseling and your choice of birth control methods by a licensed healthcare provider within 60 to 180 days prior to scheduled release date. However, the only methods available to the incarcerated women to prevent pregnancy are condoms, which appeared shortly after the men started arriving, and Plan B emergency contraceptives. So this is appalling at best, diabolical at worst. So this development, though, should not come as any surprise to us. You know, it really shouldn't. Years of bra burning and women's liberation marches has sold, at peril, the idea that women and men are interchangeable, right? Anything you can do, I can do better, right? And then this back and forth battle of the sexes, and women, asserting that they are equal as men, not equal in value, but equal in strength and everything else, and we can be just like men. So then, if you're going to play that game, the converse is applicable as well, right? It's just a natural progression that men will start saying the same thing. And once you start this game, you don't get to choose how this fire will spread, right? You don't get to choose. So, in 2016, I don't know how many of you are aware, but the Department of Justice and the Department of Education sent a letter to the schools. And in this letter, and it's basically under Title IX, Civil Rights Act. And what they are saying in the letter, it goes on about how schools need to start acknowledging people's gender identities and gender preferences. And it talks about terminology and all the different pronouns and it talks about not being non-discriminatory and making sure that schools are offering a safe and non-discriminatory environment. Now, the part I want to focus on in this letter is it says that for restrooms and locker rooms, a school may provide separate facilities on the basis of sex, but must allow transgender students access to such facilities consistent with their gender identity. A school may not require transgender students to use facilities inconsistent with their gender identity or to use individual user facilities when other students are not required to do so. So you hear what that's saying. They are saying that a student can say, yeah, I'm a boy, and use the men's or the boys' locker rooms. You know, a guy can say, yeah, I'm a chick, and use the women's, or I keep saying women, but these are girls, because they sent this to schools. And so, this was 2016. So if they're sending schools, by the way, this isn't a law. This letter, it's not a law, but as we've been seeing in recent times, with different government arms, although they, like the CDC, although they don't create laws, they are certainly finding loopholes that they can use to punish or bludgeon people who don't go along with this stuff. But the fact that the DOJ and the Department of Education sent this letter out, like I said, May 2016 to schools, lets us know that all bets are off, and of course the prisons are going to start doing it too. I mean, this is starting in California. It's only a matter of time before other states start doing it. If nobody says anything, if it gets overlooked, it's going to spread like a cancer through the whole country, just like everything else. So that's what's happening in California. Women who have largely been abused by men are now going to be locked in a cell 24 hours a day with violent rapists. Wow. Yeah. So that's terrible. And I feel terrible for these women, and we should be praying for these women. But one thing I want us to realize about this whole thing, within this letter from the DOJ and DOE, this letter is, like I said, going over terminology. And if we notice something, transgender, that's a new word, right? Because there is no such a thing. I cannot transition to something else. I cannot change my chromosomes. I can change outer appearance. I cannot change my DNA. Nope, can't do it. Sorry. So that's new. It implies, that word transgender implies that you are transitioning into a different gender. That's what that word says. And so what is happening here? What is actually happening? Is this really about LGBT? Is this really about transgender rights or anything like that? It is not. If you watched in my last video, I talked about how that flag represents revolution. That is what it represents. So if you want to start changing a culture, you have to attack the language. You have to start breaking down and removing language, and start including or creating words and phrases that align with your traditions and your cultures, whatever. So what is happening is the globalist, okay, the people at the very top who want a one world government and one world religion, that's coming. But people who want that are changing the language. They're getting rid of the traditional language, because obviously, language, there's meaning in language. That's how we communicate. That's, language is based on the culture. And so they're removing the language and they're changing language and inserting things like gender identity, sex assignments, transgender, wokeism, intersectionality. All these words are new terms that represent a new America. That's what we need to understand. Has this terrible thing that's happening in California with the prisons, in essence, this is a reflection of the huge culture shift. And that flag that Jamaica, that some of the Jamaicans were protesting, they understand that flag means something different. It is a different America. That's what that flag is. And so it's the America that aligns with all of these things. Okay. Now, this whole the flag, the rainbow flag, this whole movement, understand that is just the vehicle through which this revolutionary movement is taking place, right? It's just a catalyst, right? It has nothing to do with the actual people, groups, or, so to speak. It has everything to do with simply they're just using that to infiltrate the culture and to establish a new society. That's what's actually happening with all of this. But I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. That's another video. Just wanted to talk basically about this thing that's happening in California, and that we should all just be praying for these women. And if you live in California, if you live in these areas, I mean, start pushing back, protesting, start writing your representatives and letting them know that this is not okay to be housing men with these poor women in prison. This is terrible. Yeah. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.